I have that and I have that, and I don't know which came first.
Oh, so- But nothing, this is, okay.
That's all I've got.
Thank you.
Mhm. Paul, don't forget to get me the mileage. You don't have to
Do
do it
that.
now. You don't have to do it now.
Oh, I might actually have it right next to me somewhere. I'll look.
Okay.
Oh, that's, I'm sorry, for the other truck. You need the other truck. The old truck's mileage, right?
Yeah,
Okay, that's a company too. I'll
yeah,
have to
I
go.
have the new truck's mileage because I have an odometer statement. I think. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
have to
care
go
about
to the
the
other
others.
firehouse. We moved it up the company too, so.
All right.
Good afternoon, folks.
How are you, sir?
Good. I thought for some reason you were off in travels.
Me?
Yeah,
I was for the weekend and then I got back Monday, early Monday morning.
was that?
Like
Okay.
early. And I'm on the hook for this weekend too, but nothing on the books right now.
Oh, great. Did you happen to get,
One
Chris-
never knows.
of course, did you happen to get Chris the mileage on that fire truck?
She just asked me about it today and it's up at company too. We moved it to get it out of the way here.
Okay.
So I'll run up and get it when we're done here.
No hurry, when it's convenient to you. I got 4:02, but we'll give it a few minutes, a couple minutes for Catherine. We're all here? You're muted, Catherine, if you're trying.
Actually, I'm not muted. Can you hear me?
I hear you now.
I'm
You had a little
trying to get,
microphone with a cross across it. That's why I thought you're muted.
funny,
Okay,
it's not, can you see me on camera?
no, got a little camera to cross that.
Okay, let's see if we can get it right here. For whatever reason, it didn't start the video. Bear with me, I'm gonna log in one more time. Is Paul gonna be, I'm sorry, Roger gonna be here?
He's here. He's here in the office.
I don't see him.
See him there?
Ah,
now?
hey there.
Just turning down the scanner.
Something must be set up a little differently because I have said to join with video. And for whatever reason, it's not doing it. This time we had to put in a passcode. I've never had to do that before.
Yeah, I noticed that. I never had to do that either. Not sure what the difference was.
Okay. I'm sorry that my video is not working for some reason. First time that's happened.
Not a problem. I've got 406 on my screen.
I've got
So
403.
I've got 401 on my watch. Let's go with Catherine since it's in between. Call the meeting at 4:03. Members, all members present, the Board of Selectmen, and as our honored guest, we have Paul Varga and our administrative aide, Christine Avakoff. And this is a special meeting of the Board of Selectmen, and item 3 on the agenda is to review 2022, 2023 budget. What I was hoping was if Catherine or Roger have any questions, we could make note of them. I did make although we didn't make recommendations on the budget to the Board of Finance last Thursday, we did have some general discussion. And I advised them that our board had elected to hold off making any specific recommendation on cuts on the town government side of the budget until E.O. Smith and the Board of Education had an opportunity to make their presentation. As I mentioned then, and I think I mentioned to the board before, E.O. Smith, I have got a draft of their budget, and they're showing Ashford's side of an additional 1.3%, equates to about $47,000 of an increase for this year, which is considerably less than, I believe, what we were of the
So-
impression from last year expecting to get.
All right, so during our last meeting, Bill, you had said, and we all agreed that our departments really do a really, really good job of cinching their belts and when they go to submit their budgets. And I guess I don't understand, and you know, and a lot of people will probably disagree with this, but basically the town budget and the school budget and the E.O. Smith budget are all separate entities. Each of those budgets has to stand on their own. So I guess I don't understand why we have to wait until the school budget is put forth, because I'm not sure what difference you think that's going to make with the budget we're going to discuss today.
Well, I agree with what you said and what I said last week, in that year after year, our town budget end of it, we, I think we work at the bare minimum. And that's reflected in our budgets year after year. We don't have to wait. If you wanted to support the budget as it's proposed right now, I guess we could do that. My personal
Absolutely.
opinion, and I thought we were all in agreement the last time, but it's open, of course, for discussion, is I'd like to know a bottom line of what we're looking at overall before we start nitpicking. I mean, if, to be honest with you and to talk candidly, if between all three budgets, we were looking at a 3 or 4 mil increase, while I would hate to do it, I would have to be taking a second look at our budgets and looking at percentages across the board to cut. Just a personal thought on my part, because I think that we're all very well aware of, we're not going to get a 3 or 4 mil increase fast in this town. I just don't think the town has a taste for it and doesn't feel that it can afford that at this time.
Well, I get the concept. I was really just remarking that these are three separate budgets. And just as I don't believe that the selectmen should weigh in on what the school puts forth as a budget, they're accountable for their own budget. We're accountable for the town budget, the general government, and capital improvement. And I just wanted to, you know, make sure that that's clarifying. The as far as looking at what we've got here, what we did last time is we didn't go through the budget in any detail. So I know when I presented the budget to the Board of Selectmen, I'm sorry, the Board of Finance last year, we gave them some specifics about where things were increasing and where things were decreasing and why. So is that the intent when we go back to the Board of Finance?
Yes.
All right, good. So I do have some questions about what we have.
Let me just mention a couple of things, then we can get into some particulars. As far as my thought, the one thing that we did discuss at our last meeting that is not in our budget, and I'd like to get a flavor of what you and Roger think of it. As you know, Catherine, a number of months ago, probably almost a year ago now, we did have a request from Cheryl Baker come to us to add a 25-hour position to the finance office.
Right.
That is not addressed in our office. I had Chris, just to refresh everybody's mind. I don't remember, Roger, if you were in on that time or not, but I had Chris email you the summary that Cheryl had put together for us.
Yeah, we had it before.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just to refresh
Same-
everybody's memory. I mean, basically, I did just some quick figuring. If on a comparable hourly rate, we hired a 25-hour person, and the comparable rate would be along the lines of what our assistant town clerk, what we paid prior to assistants, for instance, in the assessor's office, and Katie are getting right now, our land use clerk. It's roughly $25 an hour. So if you took that times 52, we'd end up with somewhere between 32 and 35,000. I don't know what our workers' comp and some other costs, but that would be an additional cost. And you know, I wanted to open the floor for discussion on what you folks think, and then offer some alternatives that I think I mentioned to you last week that are potential there. that we haven't done anything on yet, but Catherine, do you care to share your thoughts on that position in particular? Or-
Yeah, I think I shared them the last time. One, I do believe that help is needed there. But I think that the primary problem that our finance department is having is that they're struggling with the system. And we have a solution, well, a potential solution for helping them with that. I don't think adding a person and still struggling with that system is going to solve the problem. I think you need to solve the problem at the core, which is they're struggling with the system. It's taking way longer than it should take to provide information, to get information out, to do reporting, the kind of reporting that's required, and the kind of reporting that would be helpful to us and anybody else. So what's your thinking on that? I know that we talked about this last time.
Well, I think I mentioned to you the last time, and I just to make sure it was still plausible or on the table, I followed up with the school superintendent today again. And they have hired a new full-time position over there to do their payroll,
Which is what you had mentioned at our last meeting, I think.
among other things. And I had talked to Craig. He actually brought it up to me earlier this year of working out some sort of a scenario with them where we would have that person work in our finance office for 1 day a week.
Mhm.
And he is still open for those discussions. And obviously, from a cost benefit, it would be a lot less expensive to go that route. And I'm thinking even on a trial basis. Now, I have not talked at any length with Cheryl about that, but
So Bill, what if we were to do that and we had a floater?
well, if that would work out, I think that would be ideal. This person that we're talking about, and I haven't talked to the person directly, but I have enough confidence in the superintendent's judgment up there. She has expertise in the system the new system we bought that we're having difficulties with. She, and to quote him, she's an expert with Tyler systems. And it just makes a lot of sense to me. Now, I have not sat down and been able to crunch figures with them. But if it's our board's thought, and I'm getting the impression that we're on the same page on this, I'd be glad to do that and to get back to you on what the cost would be. We know it would be less than our hiring a 24/5-hour person. But
Yep.
as you said, Catherine, it may be that we do that, and then we also do for some hours less than that, maybe 20 hours a week or something like that, get a floater person.
Yeah, my personal opinion is that's a better option.
I agree.
I don't know if you heard Roger, but
I heard.
he's in agreement with that. So if you folks want me to, I will pursue that, and the next time we'll meet, try to take that to the next step and get some finer points on what the cost potentials are and the mechanics of that. I do think, and I didn't realize when we set up this meeting that Cheryl was going to be on vacation this week, because I was going to ask her to join us for several reasons, but I would like to get her input on that. Perhaps at our next meeting, we could invite her to give us some input on that and pick her brain a little bit on that. But I personally, I think we're in agreement. That's the way to go if it works out that way.
Okay. I think something must be done. Cheryl and the finance department is overburdened. You know, they have, other things that they're doing besides finance. They're doing IT as well. Maybe, again, I had seen, I think Chris sent out one of the write-ups. There was another write-up as well that talked about what everybody who is working there is doing, as part of their job. So it was more than the write-up that we got another copy of, but we all have them.
Yeah, and I did have a conversation with Cheryl this week, just a general conversation, not about bringing on this person from the school or anything, but I know she got into some depth of how much time she's spending on IT now. And, you know, with the Zoom meetings and the posting of agendas and all that coordination, it's obviously taking up, I think, more time than any of us originally anticipated it would be.
Well, that floater could do some of that,
I
depending.
think so. Under the ideal situation, yes.
Mhm.
So I will mark that for our next agenda, and I'll work on that, report to you folks ASAP with so timeframes and dollar amounts. And we'll fine tune that.
Did you have any other things that are new additions or whatever from the last time we talked?
Well, the only thing and as you know, tomorrow night, the Board of Ed is making their presentation. I know that in the budget, that the original budget we were all sent out, it was reflected in there of a 19% increase in health insurance costs. And I understand that our broker and the superintendent and his staff have been diligently working. And I'm going to let them speak for themselves, but I understand that there's some alternatives that I think we're all going to be pretty happy with dollar amounts that have come up. That's some
The
of the best.
alternative,
I beg your pardon?
for an alternative?
Yes.
Okay.
And
With,
cost-wise.
what would be great is if there is an alternative or more than one, is that we have a side-by-side comparison of what we're getting and what we're paying for the insurance that we have now and what we would have with that alternative or alternatives.
That will not be an option for us. We're going to have to do that because, of course, if we do per our contract and everything, if we do that with our unions, we're going to have to sit down. And of course, that's also, if it comes to that, the school is going to have to do that with their several unions up there. So
So
that will
that
come
would
in
be,
due time.
would that be a joint thing with the selectmen and the school? in
I think
terms
that'd
of
be a
looking
good
at that?
idea, Catherine, to,
Yeah.
since it only makes sense. I mean, if we were to go our own way, as all of us know, with our health insurance, our costs would be greatly increased because
Right.
they have the numbers up there that allow us to spread those costs over a larger group. On our
Mhm.
own, I hate to think of what our costs would be. So
Good.
I am
would-
trying to, and then my personal feeling is working real well with the superintendent and his staff up there to work on this together. And I don't see any reason why we take a different turn on that.
Good. Well, any ideas are welcome, you know?
Absolutely. Just a couple of other things. The two of the capital improvement items, I know for Public Works in there, the big items are the replacement of the 2008 International truck. I meant to mention this at the Board of Finance meeting, but Saturday we had a snow squalls go through and we had our trucks out early in the morning. And
Yeah.
that 2.8 actually was taken off-road. We're hoping it's
Oh.
not a blown engine, but that's as it sits, it's in the garage down there and in many pieces right now.
And that's the one we're replacing? Is that the one we're replacing?
That's correct.
Good.
And the part that we're hoping it is, we thought was $1,500. I was down there today and when it came in, it's $2,300. They're going to put it back together and hope that solves the problem. Worst case scenario, we got a complete blown engine. That cost will be anywhere from $10,000 to $12,000.
So
So
when do we think we'd have that truck, the new one,
the new one,
550?
a year and a half. Oh, the 550 we have.
I mean, I'm
I'm
sorry.
not talking about that one. I'm talking about the 2008.
Oh.
That's in this budget for approval in the
Okay.
budget,
Okay,
not the one that we just took delivery of. We have that one. And I'm not 100% sure, but that should be fully ready if it's not ready for this Friday storm, they'll be ready for early next week's ongoing weather. But that's
Good.
in-house. I'm talking about the one that we were replacing, the full-size dump with the 2008 International. And
That's the one that's the 44,000 a year for 4 years.
that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And what we're gonna have to spend whatever it takes to get that back on the road, even if it's a patch job, because we're advised by 3 different dealers in order to order a replacement when the budget is passed. Hopefully it will be passed and that will be included. It's probably going to be a year and a half before we can take delivery. So we've got to keep our fingers crossed and bring that piece of equipment along. That's not good news, but it just happens to be the timing of it. It's down right now and we're working on to get it repaired. My only thought, and I'm glad to go through the budget individually if you want, but the thing that jumped out at me, and I don't know if at our next meeting you want to bring in a couple of our departments or whatever, but the only one that really jumped out to me, and I'm sure there's an explanation, is our registrar of voters. I noticed their bottom line is about a 30% increase. And I'm assuming that's mostly in labor.
Yeah, let me take it. I'm just going to take another look at that one. Because I know they struggled before. Bear with me while I try and find it.
Take your time. I've got on page 7 of the last summary I got from Cheryl.
Yeah, 34 to
Okay,
45.
super, thanks. So when they look at this, yeah, labor. What was interesting is their audited actuals. If you go back to fiscal year 2021, it was basically roughly the same number as what they've asked for. Now, during fiscal year 2020-21, there were 2 elections. And I'm trying to think if there was anything else. In the upcoming year, they're going to have the election in November. Oh, actually, for this year, they also have the budget.
And
Okay,
they're
so
also going to have a special election with the referendum on E.O. Smith on the new regionalization numbers.
yeah. And then the conference and dues, I don't know if I looked at the write-up as soon as I got this. It escapes my memory now. I don't recall, other than they have more people that they need to have there and they got to get people trained. So did they say anything to you about why their numbers were higher?
No, they haven't. And I just wanted to run it by you and Roger and you know, we could bring Lauren and Kevin and Colleen in if we wanted. By looking at this with the labor and knowing that there's a couple of special elections coming up. Well, at
Yeah.
least one that I know of, and maybe there's more. It's not a lot of money, but it is basically a 30% increase in their budget.
Yeah, I look at it as it's not a lot of money, even though I know every dime counts. And the reality is I've been there when they've tried to go through this and tried to do these multiple elections. And there's a lot of rigmarole that they didn't used to have.
Yeah.
They also have to do, mail-in ballots, that kind of thing. So much more than they did before. So I don't have an issue with their number. How about you, Roger?
No, I not there. I mean, my biggest concern is just, energy costs and what have you, and make sure that we're not going to get blindsided by, suddenly an even bigger increase in the cost of fuel and heating oil.
Well, I wish we had a crystal ball to tell
I
us
do,
that. I'm scared to death about what's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
And the more this thing tenses up with Russia, I think the more probability we're gonna have bigger problems with that. But,
Yeah.
other than holding on and praying. It's not much we can do
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
Those, I know there's not much, but those are really the only things that kind of jumped out at me and you know, in an emergency, could we go in there and it's probably the wrong term, nickel and dime some of these line items? I think we could, but I'm pretty comfortable that these are honest, forthright budgets that have been brought forward by our departments. And with things
Having-
that are not within our control, I think we just, if we can afford to do it, we go ahead and support it.
I, having sat in your seat, and been through this with those departments. I agree. I don't think it makes sense to be picayune. We'll see what we think the mill increase would be. And at that point, try to make it, once everything's calculated, try to make a decision as to whether or not there are some places where we just can't support some of what is needed, I guess.
I mean, the other thing that what I want to do is after the other two departments present their budget, or even before then, is sit down with Cheryl and our finance folks and our assessor and tax collector and try to nail down what the implications of a 19% increase in our grant list is and how that whole thing is going to sort its way out. You know, adjustments in the mill rate. I mean, in theory, when that happens in normal years, we would hope that the mill rate will go down. But until we're looking at bottom lines, I don't think
Yeah.
any of us know that for sure yet. We'd be guessing at it.
Do we have a lot of people contesting their assessment?
You know, that first few days when the revaluations came out, I got a couple of calls.
Mhm.
And, you know, I had Kara do that sort of analysis that was in the Citizen in that, and I haven't got any other calls.
Well,
Nor
I
have
liked
I
her.
heard from our Board of Assessment Appeals. I know Kara met with a couple of people and came to a reasonable alternatives on a couple of things that they called her attention to. And but overall, I think people are aware that unfortunately we're within state averages or below, and pretty much came to the conclusion they're going to have to live with it.
Yeah. I know I had a call,
21% increase.
I had a call from someone whose ranch value went up dramatically and she was kind of freaking out. And I, told her, I said, sit down with Kara. I called Kara and Kara went through very much what she ultimately put into the Citizen. I thought that was very good for anybody who was willing to read through the entire thing. And, those are the facts. And again, if we don't come within 10% of what the state says Ashford should have, then we have to do our reval all over again.
Yeah. And the feedback I'm getting is that we're not going to have to be concerned with that, that we are on a par with everybody else that's done revals either this year or the end of last year. And,
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll keep our fingers crossed, but I'm curious when all of this, when the dust settles on all of this, just where we end up with a mill rate and what the impact of that 19% increase. I was talking to Kara yesterday and told her what my dilemma was and trying to lay some groundwork to get that resolved. And she did say that our commercial base also experienced about a 20 to 21% increase overall in their assessments. So it's pretty standard right across the board. Our lake areas took a much bigger bump. One of our biggest taxpayers in town had over 100% bump. And I understand that he's not appealing it. So,
100%. Wow, that's huge. That's amazing that it would go up that high.
yeah, well, I don't want to get in particulars because
Yeah.
well, it's public information. There were other factors that figured into that, like an expansion of
Oh,
the
yeah.
facilities and that sort of
I
thing.
think I understand. I'm just trying to get to On our, okay, so Roger, Bill, did you have any other things related to the general government budget? Are we only
No, I
looking
mean,
at
I'm
general
just looking-
government, or are we also looking at capital improvement, Bill?
Well, we can talk, I mean, it's a general budget. I think under
Sure.
that heading, we can discuss whatever you're comfortable or you'd like to discuss.
Okay. Trying to get to,
You know, what I was wondering, what I wanted to run by you folks was, and I offered this to the Board of Finance also. They have a regular meeting coming up on the 3rd, but
Mhm.
they're getting their Region 19 presentation on the 10th of March. And then they're looking for Board of Selectmen recommendations. On their regular meeting on the 3rd, if they had any questions, Paul, I don't know if you would be aware of this or you discussed it, or we would like to bring in any of our departments at that meeting and have a combined meeting with them. I'm comfortable that our budget as it sits right now is as close to the line as they can work without a crisis.
Yeah,
But,
I think from the selectmen's, if the selectmen are comfortable with what the departments have submitted, then I would consider anything that the Board of Finance wanted, if they want to talk to a department, that's on them
Of
to
course.
make those arrangements.
Yep.
And I'm just checking something real quickly here. I'm trying to find our previous budget out on the town website. And by the way, I hate this website, just so you know.
You hate what?
I hate the website. I don't usually use the word hate, but it is not a friendly head site. Town
I
site.
agree wholeheartedly, and I've got a couple of people who have offered their expertise after the budget process to come in and at no cost. That's what they do for their livelihood, but they're offering their services to the town to come in and sit down with us and do some brainstorming. So maybe we can have a special selectmen's meeting just to go over what some of the things we'd like to achieve as user friendliness. I have sort of meanders through a number of other towns with their websites. I found some that I disliked as much as ours. I found a few that I thought were a lot user friendlier than ours. So that's certainly a goal I think we can strive for.
You went through the same thing I did. I also had talked with 2 companies about what they offered.
Yeah.
But it didn't seem the right time to make a switch like that, so it just didn't come up. So what I'm looking for out on our town website is what we have, our budget package from last year. Just want to check something real quick.
I
Oh, here it is.
may
I
be
found it.
wrong, but I think it's in the lower right-hand corner of our front page.
I found it.
Oh,
I
okay.
found it. Bear with me. Adopted budget package for website. So in this, I just want to look. Our 5-year capital improvement plan. So I'm confused. There was something that I heard about recently, and I think it has to do with the schools unexpended fund, and where somehow we took, I can't believe that we did, $62,000 out of the schools unexpended fund and applied it to something in capital improvement. Are you aware of that?
No.
Okay, so the process, I
Are you
don't
saying
believe that's,
we did or Board of Finance did? I didn't mean.
no, I don't believe, no, the board, I'm pretty sure the Board of Finance didn't do that. But it's my understanding there's a discrepancy between what the town is saying, our finance department is saying is in the unexpended education
Not
fund.
lapsing.
Non-lapsing, and what the school is saying is in there. And the question is the $62,000 that apparently may have been applied to something that was a capital improvement, which I'm not aware of. Oh, here I see. They had something, I'm looking at last year's budget. And it had for 21-22 approved by Board of Selectmen. It's got 62,000 down in under Ashford School unexpended fund for funding, suggested funding. So if that were the case, I'm a little confused, but if that were the case, then that would have had to have been approved by us and then approved by the Board of Finance through the normal procedure for taking money out of that fund. And this is a plan. This is not the end all be all. It is the plan. So I'm not sure what happened with that, but I think we should get some clarification. And we should never have a situation where what the school believes is in that fund and what the town is saying is in that fund are different.
Yeah, if I might call on Paul because did you get the memo that the Board of Selectmen was sent by Cheryl on February 11th?
This year? Is that this
Yes.
year?
And in the third paragraph there, and I'll read it. The fiscal year ending 21 audited balance of the Board of Education non-lapsing fund of 111,619 can be found on page 58 of the audited financial statements. We reduced that amount by 62,000, which is the amount you just mentioned, Catherine, on July 1st to accommodate funding Board of Education projects in the capital improvement as approved at referendum. We further reduced that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So what she did was, I think what, if I understood correctly, is that she's saying because it was approved at referendum, therefore it's done.
Well, again, she's not here to clarify that, but and then it just says we further reduced that by $4,875 for a portion of the solar project at the school approved by Board of Finance on February 25th of 21, and by $18,707 for a project approved by the Board of Finance on November 11th of 21. This leaves a balance of $26,037. Paul, isn't that close to the figure that Craig had verified? I've got his memo, although it doesn't have a date on it. When you met with him, and I think Cheryl was also in on it. You're muted if you're talking. Can't hear you. Still can't hear you. Huh?
Paul, are you there?
He's here, but I can't hear him. Put a thumbs up or a thumbs down if that figure's close. Okay. Paul, apparently his audio isn't working. I think we're having some technical problems here today. But Paul had a meeting back in February, and I'm sorry this memo isn't dated. With him, and you correct me, Paul, if I'm mistaken, but with Craig, Dina, and I believe Cheryl joined you by phone. And they kind of crunched these figures, Catherine. And I believe everybody was on the same page, and it may not have been
Yeah.
exactly 26,037, but it was pretty close to it about what the remaining balance in their non-lapsing fund is.
Actually, I believe that is not the case. I think that there is still a question on the Board of Ed side. Just so you know. So I'm looking, you said that was February 11th, we got that email from Cheryl?
From Cheryl, yeah.
I don't know why I don't have one.
Chris, I believe it was in an email form. I don't know if you could see if you have it. Cheryl
I'm
forwarded
looking
it
on-
to all of us.
Yeah, I'm looking under Cheryl, anything from Cheryl, and I don't see anything.
It's not an
February
email.
11th.
It wasn't an
our-
email? I thought it was.
No. Was not.
Just a hard
was it?
copy. And did you forward that on to Roger and Catherine? You remember seeing that?
No,
Well, I've not heard that question by the board, and I'm not denying that you heard that, Catherine, but I have not heard that specifically from, and I've been attending just about every Board of Ed meeting.
I think yeah, well, I don't know if it would have come up in the meeting, but I had a conversation with someone. I think the question was the procedure for taking the money out of that fund wasn't followed. So,
Well, we'll make a note of that and look into that. I haven't heard that before, but certainly look into it, Catherine.
well, yeah, if in fact, it was assumed because the town approved the capital improvement plan, when all is said and done, that's based upon what we believe the funding will be. Okay? So I'm not sure if it's kind of both sides, if it's, we're gonna have these expenditures, and of course, the Board of Selectmen and the Capital Improvement Committee are saying, we anticipate using these funds from these resources. But we still have to, when we go to take money out of that particular fund, we have to follow procedure. And I have a sneaking suspicion that's what probably has caused the confusion. That was not done.
Okay, hey, Bill, is my mic working now?
I can hear you now.
Yeah.
Okay. So the $62,000 was approved at referendum. We have to account for the fact that it's supposed to be deducted, whether it has been or not, doesn't matter. The cost was, or the project was approved. That would be no different than if we approved, or there's other items that were approved that have to be accounted for.
The difference,
They spent the 18 already, so that's already done. And there was a little, it wasn't exactly 18,000. I don't think that all the invoices have come in, but that
So,
account
Paul?
for both. Yeah,
Paul, the point
Yes.
wasn't that it was approved at referendum. The point was, the procedure for moving the money out of that fund was not followed. When we look at these sources of funding down here on the capital improvement plan, you still have to follow the appropriate procedures for moving them, moving the money to pay for the stuff. Or targeting the money. So what should have happened is that the Board of Ed should have come, that the Board of Finance should have approved this after the Board of Ed had come to them to make the request. Okay, and that's what I'm saying didn't happen.
yeah,
So
I
it's
wasn't on
not-
the board
it's not
then,
as-
so I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
That's before my time.
But it doesn't matter. The point is that just because it was approved at referendum doesn't mean it was properly done. And I think that's where the confusion is coming up, because the Board of Education really apparently wasn't aware of how this was being done. So,
So if it was put into the budget package, then the Board of Finance would have had to been aware of it. And consequently, the Board of Ed would have had to been aware of it, because they would have had to ask the Board of Finance to do it.
they didn't. That's the point. There was nothing on your agendas or in your minutes that references this as something that the Board of Education has come to ask you, the Board of Finance at the time, to ask them to take that money out of that fund for a particular purpose, which is exactly what's written up in the thing for how they're supposed to do it.
Right. I
Okay?
don't
And
disagree.
I don't put it on the I actually don't put it on the Board of Ed, because I'm not sure what this was supposed to pay for.
Right.
Do we have any idea, Paul, what that 62,000 project was?
No, I'm trying to look back and see if I can find it because there's been a couple things that have come up that people didn't know what they were for, and they actually were, it was in the minutes or in the agenda.
Well,
I do not
I'll
know.
look
Like I
into
said,
that.
I wasn't on the board at that time, so I would have had, I mean, I was quite likely at the meeting, but I don't remember it either.
No, they didn't do it. Well, that's because they didn't do it. You know, it wasn't done by either party. So,
Well, then
that's
I guess
something-
my question would be, how did it get in the budget package?
It still had to, it could get into the budget package, but it still has to go through the process of moving the money. Okay, and moving the money, there's a process for that.
I understand that. But that's not my question. My question is, if it was put into that budget package, somebody asked for that to happen. So I don't know. I wasn't on the board.
I will research that and report back to everybody.
Guys,
Well,
the 62,000, if you look at the 21-22 budget and you go to Ashford School, there was 37,000 for the heat exchanger and
Yeah.
25,000 for planning and design for the roof replacement. So that
So
equals
was,
62, I think.
thank you.
that does. Yep.
So was that heat exchanger done? And the roof replacement plan design was done?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, that may be the confusion that the school has. Again, you know, just for the future, we should be following the protocol that we have for, moving literally moving the money. Because it does get moved.
Chris, what was the 25,000 was the solar project, correct?
Planning and design.
Right.
Planning
was-
and just,
That was on the agenda for the Board of Finance, February 25th, 2021.
actually,
They
it was,
They split
had-
it into two different, they split the number, but it's 25,000.
actually what they had was the roof replacement solar RFP was proposed for 2000 fiscal year ending 2023. And the roof replacement plan design was for year ending 2022.
and
So
the
just
heat
looking,
exchanger. Yep.
yeah, so and the heat exchanger.
Mhm.
I haven't found the heat exchanger yet.
If you look at you'll see the sheet that's a lot like the one you got from Bill. Of the capital improvement projects. Yeah, on the end of towards the very end of the budget package that's out on the town website. So there's got to be a way for the school to be kept aware of, you know, what the balance is in that fund. To have this level of confusion at this point in time is unfortunate.
I'm
Right,
not
so-
sure, of course, I don't know your sources, who you're referencing, Catherine, but, you know, in talking with the school superintendent, who is my counterpart up there, he doesn't seem to have any question on what the balance is around procedures, so, and I haven't heard this at a Board of Ed meeting, so I'm not sure who's complaining about procedures not being followed.
I didn't say complaining about procedures, confusion about what the balance is in that account. And that was my conversation with the superintendent. Okay. And it was disconcerting to him to not understand what that balance was. So his thing was, wow, I don't see anything where the Board of Ed went to the Board of Finance to have that money moved. So I think what his point of reference has been is whenever they've gone to the Board of Finance, that's when they know the school is exactly aware of what is actually has been approved by the Board of Finance to move. So that's the point with the procedure. And I think that's where the confusion has come into play here. I believe that the monies were used for what they were supposed to be used for. There was $62,000, but it was not clear because the procedure wasn't followed. So that's why there's been some back and forth on it.
Like I said, I look at the.
Actually, what I'd love to see in the Board of Finance's letter to the public is for them to also indicate, what's in that fund. So that people are aware, because that's monies that carried over from the previous budgets.
There's our 62K, right? Boom, boom, boom.
Right.
The other thing is in the budget package, will the Board of Finance have the sheet, and Paul, you can look it up, where it talks about, it's towards the end of the package, and it is where it talks about the capital improvement plan. And it says, these are the items that have been added. We've gotten the capital improvement plan. Here's a description for each of them, the amounts. It's a narrative page. And it has, prior to that, it has, here are the projects that were there last year. This is what's been completed. This is what's outstanding on those, including, how much money was spent to complete those. So I would hope that would be in the budget package, so people will get to see, okay, here's what we had in our capital improvement plan last year. Here's what got done. Here's what's still outstanding and how much money is still left for that particular item. And then here's what we're proposing for the new year.
Is it currently written like that, Catherine?
I know when I did the budget, it was. I'm going to do a double check here, and I think it's in there. I just because I had brought it up last year. But I think that's the public's entitled to know what the status of these are. Let me just see if I can get back to this. And they shouldn't have to go climbing through the audit report to figure it out. And let me see if I can again find the budget package. To get to the other one, where is it? It's under documents, just so in case anybody's wondering. So where is it here?
So the one next to, well, like 3 pages from the last page on last year's, on the 21-22 budget package, there's a capital improvement plan that shows the expenses for 2021, 21-22. It keeps on going. So
yeah, what you have is you'll see
That's there.
It's got the 5-year improvement plan. Now, what this doesn't have, it doesn't have what the previous, what was the result of the previous year so far.
It has 2020, 2021. So
I'm looking for 2021. Hang on.
It shows it what the projects were. It doesn't tell you if they were completed. That's true, but
so all I see, bear with me, I see, hang on. I see the report that comes out of the system, this budget worksheet revenues. And then I see Town of Ashford fiscal year 21-22 capital improvement plan. And that's for that new year. What I don't see is a description or anything of the projects that they had before? Or amounts?
And the one I'm in on page 45, it says Town of Ashford 5-year local capital improvement plan,
Not sure.
fiscal year 2022 through 2026. And then page 46 is a breakdown starting actually with 2020 to 2021.
Okay, slow up a little bit because I'm firing page numbers and,
There's a couple different budget documents on the website. So
the only one that
There-
counts is, the only one that counts is the one that was adopted.
correct,
Okay.
but that's not what went out for the public, which is what was, it's the same budget. But if you're asking for the budget package that goes to the town meeting to describe what
No.
happens,
No.
that's the one I have.
No,
The
I'm
adopted
talking about,
budget doesn't have an explanation about anything. It just shows the numbers.
yes, it does. I'm looking at it. Just so you know. I'm
Yeah,
looking
after
at,
after the front page with all the policy stuff, it just shows all the info. Yeah, it doesn't show oh, that's in there. The 5-year plan is in there. So it's the
Yes.
same.
right. So I always go to that because that's the one that was actually adopted. Okay, because even after a referendum, if I understand correctly, and Bill, you can correct me, the Board of Finance has the power, or the selectmen have the power to reduce the mill rate.
The Board of Finance sets the mill rate after the referendum.
That's correct.
Right, and they can reduce it at that time if they wish.
Correct.
So that's why I always look for the one that was published afterwards. Okay, so anyway, again, in that one, I'm looking for we got the descriptions for what's in what would have been for the new year. We don't have anything that's describing for the previous year, other than the worksheets on like capital DPW resurfacing. It says how much the budget is and what no, it doesn't have any up-to-date information. So I'm just suggesting that you put that in there. I know that we put it in there before. And what it does is it tells the public, here's where we got to on the plans, on the plan that you all approved last year. So they're aware.
Good idea. We'll see how much time I have.
It shouldn't be a toughie, but you can actually work from the one from the previous year and then just get the updated numbers. And maybe they're available in the system. I'm assuming they are. Okay. Bill, back to you. Again, I was just wondering about the 62,000 because that seems to be an issue, and wanted to make sure if in fact we have any monies that we're looking at coming out of that unexpended fund that in the new capital improvement plan, and I'm taking a quick look here to see if there's anything that we make sure it goes through the right procedures. And actually it's the Board of Finance that would make sure it does. So. Is Bill still there?
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
The only two things that are shown on the 5-year plan in this year's budget under the school is the $18,210 for roof replacement solar study, the RFP, and the proposed $270,000 for oil tank replacement, totaling $283,210.
And the funding for those items is going to come from where?
Well, part of that is yet to be determined. What we have proposed, and I believe the Board of Finance, Paul, you can verify this, allowed for the 2% to go into the non-lapsing fund at the discretion of the Board of Finance on how much you actually appropriate. But what Craig's intention has been is to apply 135 or a little less than that from the non-lapsing to go towards the oil tank replacement.
And I've got a note here that says we're getting 73% back from grant funds.
And whatever the total of the 270, which is estimated to be, Craig will be putting in an application for a grant for reimbursement of between $70,000 and $73,000.
Oh,
Excuse me,
percent.
70 and 73%.
Okay. I do remember him talking about that. So I know that, one of the concerns that they have is making sure that there's enough money in that fund in the event that they get an unexpected situation where they have a special ed student come in who has extraordinary needs, and making sure that they can cover that, because all they can do in the budget that they put forth is plan on what they know, basically what they have on hand, what they know at that point in time.
The policy that the board just renewed reflects that those funds can only be used towards capital improvement funding. The actual state statute has
Right.
changed that, and it says for educational purposes. So
Right,
there's
that's
some
why-
debate that we're in contradiction of state statute with the new policy.
And that's why I mentioned about having a change made to that says for educational purposes or capital improvement.
But
which
that
would
was
have-
not approved. The
would not
only thing that was approved, Paul, you correct me if I'm wrong, is for capital improvement purposes.
That's correct.
Right.
The
That's because
policy
you were
was,
trying to move it along.
it wasn't even actually changed. The policy itself wasn't changed, except for the one addition of allowing the 2% to be used, or to be
Right.
the possibility of up to 2% being moved to the non-lapsing fund for the 2021 fiscal year. That's the actual only change to the policy. There was
The
some
only-
verbiage that was deleted because it had some legal implications, but that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree with the way the policy stands. I don't actually necessarily agree with it, but we have other stuff that needs to be done, and one of them is to get that money moved so that we know what can happen for the capital improvement project, especially the oil tank. So that
Yeah,
policy
I think-
is, I mean, the state updated their policy in 2019, I believe it was, and I could be wrong on the date. So our policy, the town Board of Finance policy has been different for several years now. It's not like it was last week that the state updated it. So that's where it stands. So
Right. I just a word of caution. Over time, should we not get that more in sync with what the state has, then there could be some ramifications. So, but for right now, as long as the school is in agreement, I don't see it being a big issue. Again, I'm just concerned about how the 62,000 got moved, and they weren't really aware of how that all worked because of the procedure.
well, I think there was a lot of things that happened there. One of the biggest things from what I've learned talking with Craig is that there was a lot of information that was not passed along by the previous administration.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
I remember the conversation about the heat exchanger on a couple occasions, sitting at a Board of Finance meeting, and specifically Jim Rupert talking about it. So I'm not sure what would have happened or how it didn't happen. But like I said, I wasn't on the board. So, you'd have to go through all the minutes, both Board of Ed and Board of Finance. But the biggest thing I saw, Catherine, was there was a lot of information that was not passed on. So,
The procedure, the bottom line is the procedure would be that the Board of Ed would have to approve it. Then they bring it to the Board of Finance. And, that's what I would just want to make sure that we do that going forward. In the meantime, there's a clarification as to how this happened and why there was some confusion. And even if this were something that were passed in referendum, pro forma, I'd make sure that the, next Board of Finance meeting that happens, so the money could be transferred without it being questioned or confusing.
yeah, in reality, that part of the transfer actually that doesn't need to go to referendum. I think
Oh.
the confusion in there is that it in that document, it just says that part of those capital improvement projects were being funded by the Board of Ed's non-lapsing fund. It's not technically approved. That 62,000 wasn't approved in referendum.
So exactly. And in fact, what it says suggested funding.
Right. So, I
Okay?
mean, I
So
agree.
it's
Like,
not
if
it's not a
somebody
done
didn't,
deal on the funding.
right, if somebody didn't do the homework and move the money, then well, I can go find the previous chair and smack him because it wasn't me. And I'm not the chair anyway. So, but
No, the Board of Finance didn't do it.
so,
Okay.
Like I said, I found 35,000 for the solar voltaics, the solar stuff. So that part got moved. I do remember the conversation about the heat exchanger, but I don't know where it would have occurred.
No, it would have been a relatively formal process. So let's not belabor it anymore. It would have been a relatively formal process. Need to make sure that if we're going to move money, that it's done that way.
Right.
You're
All right,
moving
I
it from
think
one
we're
fund to another.
we've spent enough time on this. I'll just remind
Absolutely.
everybody, this is a special meeting to discuss the Board of Selectmen's general government budget recommendations.
Okay, so with the capital improvements, were there any changes that you have at this point in time, Bill?
Chris, the worksheet that I'm looking at is dated February 15th, 12:35. Am I looking at the right one?
Yeah, that's the last version.
Okay. Is that the one that you and Roger are looking at? Up in the upper left-hand corner, February 15th, 22 of 12:35 in the afternoon?
Is that the
Yeah.
one, is that the one that you submitted to the Board of Finance?
To everybody.
I think everybody should have got that.
Is this the one that has page 2?
Page 2 is just the ARPA funding. And that was not submitted because it's not part of the budget thing right now. So all we sent was the capital projects without the ARPA.
So the only thing that
We
I
had some,
see on-
yeah. As I recall, we talked about, I don't know, some wording changes or something that was in the capital improvement plan. I don't know if that was done. I don't think I have the version that was submitted to the Board of Finance. So, but I don't want to be a pain here. So, did you have any other changes to it? I'll look in the minutes that were from the Board of Finance for it.
yes.
And when do you present again, Bill?
Well, I'm scheduled, the agenda for our yearly schedule for the budget would be Board of Selectmen, excuse me, bear with me, recommendations on March 10th. And I didn't know if our board, let me just wait for a minute here. Roger had to step out of the room for a minute. Oh, he's back. I was wondering if we just wanted to reconvene for a brief meeting on the afternoon of the 9th, which is a Wednesday, just to make sure we're all on the same pages and our expectations are all the same.
It's fine.
Would 3 o'clock work for everybody? That's Wednesday, the 9th at 3
That-
o'clock. And we'll make that a Zoom.
So that works for me. So, Paul, your meeting minutes from the 17th are just the
Hey.
motions? Will you have minutes?
The minutes went in today, but Cheryl's not in, so I don't know how they're gonna post them.
Okay, so the way that they can post them is Karen can post them.
Well, Karen has them too, so.
All right.
Karen's not here either.
And Karen's not in either.
Have they
Oh, there
taught
you go.
anybody else how to do it? All right.
I don't know if Sherry will do that or not.
Yeah, I don't know that she knows how. I know the two did. Okay, I was just looking to see where the document was. All right, so Bill, do you want to get together again next Wednesday, was it?
Next Wednesday at 3 o'clock. Now, the only other thing I wanted to pick your brains about a little bit is I made a personal suggestion that in their deliberations of when the Board of Finance comes to a point of recommending funding for the non-lapsing for the school, and the consideration of how much they're going to arrive at is based on how much they leave in our unassigned fund balance. As a general rule, we like to leave between 10 and 12%, 10 being the minimum. Cheryl also on that last date sent out, she gave us a graph, and I believe this was sent to you and Catherine, Roger. But I suggested that to leave themselves a little buffer, that they base their transfers to CNR, leaving 10.50% in the unassigned fund balance. I don't know if you folks have any thoughts on that. My rationale was that it would leave a little room for adjustments if there's some unforeseen things that come up that we're not accounting for, or perhaps ARPA doesn't allow one or two things, which I don't think is going to happen.
I don't think that's going to
But I
happen
think it
either.
just leaves a little buffer there. From my
So what you're-
perspective, I'd like to have a little more of a comfort level.
So what you're saying is that we would take the money that we already taxed people for, that was supposed to go for education, or supporting education, I'll say, and that we would cut that because we want to make sure there's more money in our unassigned balance.
No,
Then
what I'm
clarify.
saying is that we would reduce the reduction from our existing unassigned fund balance that's shown in our audit report.
Keep going.
To reduce that amount to not, my personal opinion, not less than 10.5%.
Yeah, we shouldn't be reducing. I'm trying to figure out how we would be reducing an amount
I
in our
don't know where
unassigned
you're
fund
saying I'm
balance.
taking education funds, because that
Bear-
wasn't
bear
in my
with me,
comments at all.
I thought you said unexpended account. So let me make sure I understand what you're saying. You're saying you don't want the balance of the unassigned, you don't want the unassigned fund balance to go below 10.5%. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
And the means for that happening is what? You're going to take money from someplace else?
the Board of Finance would reduce the existing unassigned fund balance by the amounts, and then it's graph that Cheryl gave us by the amount, and transfer those amounts to CNR, capital non-reoccurring.
Ah, so you're talking CNR. All right, that's different. Okay, so yeah, even 10.5% is, on the edge. So. Yeah, again, we need to make sure we have a healthy CNR as well, so. And do we feel that with the money that we've said, the suggested funding that we're talking about taking out of CNR for the capital improvement plan is good, right?
Yes. Yes.
That's,
and then what I further
360
would recommend to the Board of Finance, and it's their judgment on it, is the reimbursement from the oil tank project of 70 or 73% that we'll get back from the state, that amount, when it comes back, then goes into CNR.
I mean, I have a note here.
I'm not sure that I agree with that, but because you're taking it away from the school.
It does not go to the school. The reimbursement.
It goes for
would
what the school needs, right?
No. By state statute, the grant
Mhm.
reimbursement goes into the general fund.
Mhm.
It's up to the Board of Finance then to deal with how they're gonna deal with the money. They could transfer it to CNR. And I guess in their good judgment, if they wanted to give it to the non-lapsing fund, as long as it does, the non-lapsing fund is not total any more than 3%, that they could do that.
So
But that's a Board of Finance decision, not a Board of
course.
Selectmen decision.
no, I didn't think it was a Board of Selectmen decision. I'm talking about what you're recommending. If I understand you correctly. So, well, the total picture of this is that at this point in time, we're anticipating we're taking money out of the school, the education unexpended balance. 1%
Non-lapsing
fund, non-lapsing fund. We're taking money out of there for that oil tank.
Partially,
Yeah,
partially.
I know here, the school's only assuming 50% of the cost.
at the
So
most.
we're taking 50% of the costs out of there. And then what will happen is we anticipate getting a 75% reimbursement from the state.
70,
And so
73.
okay, so the school
And
gets
that's it.
nothing back on, school gets nothing back on that, and it purely goes into the unassigned fund. That's what you're saying. Or CNR.
That's up to the Board of Finance, but yes,
All right.
because they will
I'm-
otherwise just go in to the unassigned fund balance or general fund.
Right, and from there, it could be transferred to, first of all, it goes into there to begin with. Then it gets transferred to CNR. Or it gets transferred wherever else,
By the Board of Finance.
always. Okay, but it goes into the unassigned fund balance first.
Yes, or
Automatically.
general fund. Unassigned
right,
fund
so-
balance or / general fund.
And the school has indicated they're good with that?
That's my understanding. I'm not sure they understand that totally, because that's kind of out of the realm of what they're doing, but I believe so.
I would hope that Craig understands that, because he's the one who can explain it to them. All right, thank you.
So, Roger, do you have any thoughts about the 10% versus 10.5%?
No, I mean, sound,
Leave a little buffer?
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then it's up to the Board of Finance.
I wish it was, to be quite candid, I wish it was more than 10.5%. So I'm fine with 10.5 versus
Okay.
10.
Okay.
You have a school roof project coming up.
It's gonna
And
be a bonded issue.
yeah,
And a solar system projects coming up. And window replacement coming up, and asbestos abatement if you do the window. So we've got a lot of costs coming up there, that end of it. Well, that's
have
all I
you-
have, folks, unless there's something else you want to address.
Have you gotten any information back about putting the ARPA funded, potential ARPA funded projects on the capital improvement plan as something to be agreed at referendum as opposed to town meeting?
No. No, and that's something we can bring up if we want to put a motion in that. My only problem, Catherine, I think I expressed it as our last meeting. If we wait to do that until May and don't go ahead with some of the projects that we're hoping to get started this spring or this summer, we're probably going to have to wait a year. With supplies coming in the way they are, with costs going up drastically on everything I'm seeing coming in. I'm thinking like the pickleball court, like the renovations to the entrance to the Babcock, like the separate units, air conditioning units for Knowlton Hall and the library. That if we wait, we're not going to be able to get those projects done until the following year. If
So
we
with
lose a
those
couple of
ones-
months in the interim, but I mean, that's
So
something we
you-
can, say that again?
So you have that under ARPA expenses, but you don't have it as part of getting approved in the referendum.
That's correct.
So you're thinking that we would get approval for those things, again, the pickleball court, they should start what, in April?
I would call, that's what I'm hoping, and in fact, just FYI for everybody, we are getting a third bid on that, and that we should have that in hand Friday or Monday at the latest. So we're covered. My hope on that was we would get done with our budget recommendations, hand off to the Board of Finance, and then in late March, call a public hearing with the town meeting on those portions of the ARPA funds that we want to allot to certain projects. Call for that at town meeting, so we could get going on those.
Okay, so you have a public hearing and then you have to have a certain amount of time, then you have a town meeting, right?
I don't know about certain amount of time.
Well, you're not gonna do them the same night, are you?
I was hoping to.
So again, the public is supposed to be weighing in at the public hearing. So you're saying that kind of on the fly after the public hearing,
Well,
the Board of Finance would have a meeting and decide?
I know you're aware of this, but we have 2 years to designate how we're going to expend the funds with ARPA.
No, I know that.
If there are major, and we may have, I know a couple of opponents of a couple of things that we're proposing. But if we have major opponents at the public hearing, we can always withdraw consideration of that for further consideration. I don't think the pickleball court is going to be one of the things people may have complaints about, but we don't have to then call them on to a town meeting. But we have a little time to work that out. If you're more comfortable, or the board's more comfortable doing this in 2 sessions, having a public hearing, waiting a week or 10 days or whatever to call a town meeting and then calling a town meeting on it, we can do it that way. It was just, there are certain things that we're all looking forward to getting going on this coming spring and early summer, that I'm afraid if we lose 2 months waiting for the approval at referendum, we may not get them done this year.
So I guess, my only thinking is the public hearing supposed to be the opportunity for the public to learn, because they don't all know what all of these are, and to weigh in. And then it becomes, there's a decision-making process after that. And so if you're talking about people just hearing about it right then, and all of a sudden, now they launch into a town meeting immediately following, I kind of don't know how that would work very well, but whatever.
Roger, any thoughts? Anything further?
No, good.
All right, folks. Well, so we will notice a meeting for the 9th at 3 o'clock. And if I get any more information on anything, we'll certainly share it with you folks, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Any
Second,
discussion? All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye. Thank you,
Thanks,
folks.
Bill.
Take care.